Episode 14, 1981, First Whispers of the Plague. I used to feel safe in the dark. Night was my friend, wrapping me in shadows where the city's noise softened into a gentle hum. I could breathe out there. The air on Christopher Street smelled like cigarettes, cheap cologne, sweat, and hope. We were a tribe then, unspoken but unbreakable. The world called us different. We called each other family. I still remember the first time I saw the headline, Rare Cancer Strikes Gay Men. June 1981. No one understood. Not the doctors, not the papers, not us. We laughed about it at first. How could a cancer know who you loved? We joked in the bars, made up new names for it. The gay flu. The purple death. Jokes are easier than fear. But then Michael stopped coming out. His voicemail went quiet. At the club, someone else asked, "Have you seen him?" No one had. The music kept playing, but the room was missing something, like the world had turned down the color. A rumor started. "He's sick." Some said it was pneumonia. Others said it was God. Nobody said it out loud, but the fear spread faster than the stories. I still hear the sound of the ambulance that night. Sirens slicing through the city, making my skin crawl. We used to joke that the ambulance meant someone had just drunk too much, or maybe a bad trip. Not now. I watched from my window as they carried Michael out, a mask over his face, gloves on their hands. It looked like they were taking out toxic waste. He didn't look back at us. He didn't wave. The next morning, I called his number over and over. No answer. No one answered for days. I walked by his building every night, listening for music, hoping for laughter, watching the window where his lamp always glowed. It stayed dark. We started to whisper. We stopped hugging. No more cheek kisses, no more sharing drinks. Everyone was afraid. Some guys stopped coming altogether. Some got angry. Some got religious. But the fear was always there, under the skin, in every cough, in every spot on your arm. Even my dreams changed. There was always something lurking at the edge, cold hands in the dark, breathless. The papers started writing about the gay plague. Politicians ignored us. Priests warned their flocks. Our neighbors crossed the street. I remember standing in front of the bathroom mirror, looking for spots, counting every bruise, every freckle. I tried not to touch my face. That summer, funerals became common. We stopped sending invitations. We just knew when to show up. There were no answers, only more questions. Can you get it from a glass? A kiss? Is it in the air, the blood, the touch? No one would say. My mother called. She said, "Are you eating? Are you sleeping?" I lied. I couldn't tell her what was really happening. How do you explain a shadow that only we could see? Back then, the city felt haunted. A new silence in the bars, the baths, the streets. Fear clung to our skin like sweat. I kept thinking. I used to feel safe in the dark. Now every night, I wonder if the darkness is hiding me, or hunting me. The hospital corridors smelled like bleach and loneliness. When I visited Michael, they made me put on a mask and gloves. The nurse averted her eyes, handing me a flimsy gown. I wanted to ask her if she was scared of me, or scared for me. Inside the room, Michael looked smaller. His face pale and gaunt, his voice a whisper. He tried to joke, but even laughter sounded tired. "I heard they call it GRID now," he said. Gay-related immune deficiency. Another name, another curse. I brought him magazines and candy, but he hardly touched them. He told me the doctors poked him with needles, tested his blood, spoke in hushed voices just outside his door. He said, "They look at me like I'm already dead." I tried to be brave, but my hands shook as I poured him water. When our fingers touched, it was like touching a ghost. He smiled anyway. He asked about the world outside. If the parade would happen that year. If anyone still danced on Christopher Street. If the lights were still shining. I lied. I said everything was the same. But nothing was. Leaving his room, I saw the other beds. Young men, some just boys, eyes sunken and frightened. Some had no visitors at all. The nurses moved quickly, quietly. Too many beds, not enough names. Outside, I felt the city close in. Graffiti started showing up. Plague. Neighbors whispered in the halls. People avoided the elevator if I was in it. I tried to go to work, to bars, to pretend. But the world had changed. Some nights, I stayed home, counting the phone calls. Fewer every week. One by one, the faces disappeared. First Michael, then Stephen, then Lise. Some left town, some just vanished. Nobody explained. We all pretended not to notice. Rumors grew louder. You could get it from touching, from kissing, from looking. Some said the city should round us up. Some wished we'd just go away. I started having nightmares. Chased through empty streets. Lungs filling with water. No one answering when I screamed. Some of us tried to fight. We held candlelight vigils, marched in silence, carried signs. Fight back. We're still here. Sometimes the world looked at us with pity. More often, it looked away. My family called less. When they did, they talked about anything except me. My father's voice stiff, my mother's voice soft, but both sounded far away. I wrote letters I never sent. Apologies. Confessions. I tried to explain what it felt like. To lose your friends and still have to smile. To walk past your favorite bar and feel like a stranger. To cough and wonder if it's begun. The doctors gave us pamphlets. No known cure. Try to avoid close contact. Report any new symptoms. My world shrank to the size of my apartment. I watched the city from my window. The pulse of New York slowed by fear. But there was one night. I saw a candle burning in Michael's window. Someone must have lit it. It glowed for hours, a tiny, trembling defiance against the dark. I wept then, for the first time. For Michael. For me. For all of us, left to count the empty chairs. And I realized, grief was not just for the dead, but for the living. Trying to remember how to hope. For a long time, I thought I would disappear too. Some nights, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I stopped answering the phone. I stopped dreaming about the future. Every new cough, every ache felt like a sentence. But even as the fear grew, so did something else. We started looking for each other again, slowly at first. A knock on the door. A casserole left on the steps. A note slipped under the door. Call me if you need anything. We learned to grieve together. Funerals became potlucks, stories traded for tears. Someone always brought flowers. Someone always remembered to laugh. I remember the first support group I joined. It was in the basement of a church, folding chairs in a circle, stale coffee on the table. At first, no one spoke. Then someone said, "I'm scared." It was enough. We all nodded. We all breathed a little easier. Doctors, nurses, activists, people who weren't afraid, started showing up. They listened. Some offered hugs. Some brought medical supplies, food, money, their time. We began to learn the language of care. How to touch with kindness. How to listen without judgment. How to say, "I love you," without shame. One afternoon, I sat with a friend in the park. He was thin, tired, his skin marked with purple bruises. We didn't talk about the disease. We talked about books, music, the way the sun felt on our faces. For a moment, the world was gentle again. There were still nights when the fear came back. When the headlines screamed. When another friend's number went unanswered. But I learned not to run from it. I learned to write down their names. To light candles for the ones we lost. To hold hands in silence. We started marching again. Not just for ourselves, but for those who couldn't. I wrote my mother a letter. I told her the truth. I told her I was scared, and angry, and lonely, but not ashamed. I told her about Michael, about the men whose names she'd never know. About how we were still here, even if the world wanted us gone. I don't know if she understood, but she called me. Her voice shook when she said, "I love you." It was enough. Sometimes I walk by Christopher Street and remember the laughter. The way we used to dance without looking over our shoulders. I miss those days, but I don't regret loving so fiercely. Even as the world changed. Even as the plague took so much. It couldn't take the way we loved, or the way we learned to hope again. We are still here. We still find ways to sing, and in the quiet that comes after grief, I hear their voices, not whispers of fear, but whispers of courage, calling me forward into whatever comes next. Years have passed, but the silence of that time still lives inside me. Sometimes it rises at night, pressing against my chest, reminding me of everyone I lost. But with it comes something else, a kind of gentle defiance. I survived, though I'm not sure why. There are days I feel guilty for it. Guilt for breathing, for aging, for remembering what others could not. But survival is not just endurance, it's witness. I remember their voices, their faces, the way they held each other in the hospital rooms. The way we whispered secrets and shared laughter, even as the world turned its back. For a long time, I was angry, at the world, at God, at myself. I wanted someone to blame for all the empty chairs, the unanswered calls. For the way we were left to mourn in the shadows. But grief, like water, finds its own path. It wears you down, but it also smooths the sharpest stones. Eventually, I let myself forgive, not because the world deserved it, but because I needed to be free. I forgave my friends who ran away, my family for their silence, myself for surviving. Now, when I see young men and women walking down Christopher Street, holding hands without fear, I think of all we lost to make this world possible. I want to tell them, there was a time when loving who you loved was a risk, when every touch could be a goodbye, and every morning brought new rumors, new losses. But we survived. We found joy in the smallest things, a song on the radio, a note slipped under a door, the steady pulse of another heart beside our own. I keep a box under my bed, filled with letters, photographs, scraps of memory. Sometimes I open it and let myself remember. There's sorrow in those memories, but there is also pride. We loved without apology. We faced the plague and did not stop living. I still light candles for the ones who are gone. I say their names out loud, so the world does not forget. If I could say one thing to the world, it would be this. We were not a tragedy. We were a chorus of lives. Each voice a note that made the silence bearable. The world may change again. New fears, new plagues, new reasons to be afraid. But I am not afraid of the dark anymore. I have learned that even in the deepest night, the smallest whisper of hope is enough to carry us through. This is my story. Not of death, but of survival. Not of shame, but of love. Not of silence, but of all the voices still singing. And if you listen closely, you can still hear them, echoing through the city. Soft but unbreakable. The first whispers of courage.